free will drug, all the thrill, no consequence. Last time we talked about logical consistency and its importance and its use in conversations. And I had relatively mixed conversations about this episode because, so mostly with a listener called Alban, and he was telling me that, it's obvious that like being consistent is better, and I kept digging like, why is it obvious? And like, obviously it's to construct something, and that like, why is it an end in itself? And he's like, shut up, you moral nihilist. So yeah, it's a bit of a moot point, I guess, because so he was saying that in the end it's a spectrum and you'll never reach the absolute. So why even like trouble yourself over it? I want to say.
But then I don't understand his point, because he's saying that you'll never go like completely logical. So then why bother? So he is a nihilist. You're not in that conversation.
Well, that depends on what you call by nihilist, right? I was saying moral nihilist as in there is no inherent value to anything. And the why bother is more of a nihilist, like don't do anything. Just no effort nihilist. It's why bother. Why bother is not nihilist because it values laziness and rest as an absolute value. So his point was mostly like maximize your happiness essentially, and for that you need a certain amount of consistency, because like you build up something that one day so that you don't have to rebuild it again the next day. He was giving me the example of a video game character that you level up in World of Warcraft or something like that. So to get the enjoyment of the max level, you have to build up on it and consistently like come back. And granted, it's not an end in itself, but that is the only way you can build up something, I guess. So it's as morally good as progression is.
Okay, but we know that progression, we can discuss a lot about if progression is in a good or not, because like our society is based on like the idea of like always need to progress. I think you can argue that now we don't need to progress anymore, we could stop.
Yeah, I mean, progression in itself is a hard topic, right? Because it's not necessarily, well, it's obviously neither good nor bad depending on what direction you're progressing in.
Yeah.
So maybe it's better to be inconsistent than progress in the bad direction.
Okay, so the second thing I wanted to talk for the follow-up is after this episode, like I listened to it and edited it, I was thinking that it made no real sense for me to eat meat, just because I always said in my life that I don't eat cute stuff because they're cute. And actually a pig and a cow are super cute. Like you can, they just are. Like you find pictures and they're like just the nicest little animals. And actually all animals are cute. Like it's really rare to find an animal that isn't cute. So I decided to stop eating meat. So I wouldn't like I'm not vegan because that's insane. Like you just can't live by, and like I just don't have time for that. But I follow vegetarian diet, let's say. As another guy said, I can't remember who said that, but a food-based diet, to not call you a vegetarian and to remove any political leaning to it. So yeah, and like it's been weirdly easy.
Dude, I thought you were gonna say something about like being consistent and so on, but your follow-up is that you change your definition of what things are cute.
I didn't change the definition of what
the threshold.
Because, like, I always knew that they were cute. I just forgot about the nice picture that I saw. Like all animals are cute, that. So I just like I was just not remember. I was just pushing that aside. I was like, okay, I can like not eat duck or or like rabbits and stuff like that, just because they're nice.
So you knew it. You just didn't like. You try to forget it, and now you're facing your inconsistencies.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, fuck that shit. Like, that's not true. Like, everything is cute. You need to stop like eating them.
And so plants are never cute.
Plants are. I don't care about plants.
Today's episode is brought to you by arms. Do you ever want new limbs, but legs are just not cutting it? Give arms a try.
By the way, Johan, I watched a show called Years and Years that you recommended me like a few weeks ago.
Yes.
So for all of you, it's not gonna be spoil free because
It's a review. Because we're discussing the content, probably.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so I watch it and I find it like super interesting. So just like to sum it up super fast. So it's a show where you follow a family of six, I think, six brothers and sisters, and like the grandmother. And at the same time, so you follow them from 2019 to 2040. And basically there's like 4 or 5 years per episode, and you some stuff happen politic wise, and you see how like they respond to what's happening in the world. So sometimes like there's not that much like, even if it's an interesting and important political event, it doesn't really touch them. And sometimes it's not that important, it touch them a lot. And you can just see basically a normal family respond to like real events
Through a long period of time. That's the key. Yeah. It's like snapshots every few years. It's structured that way.
It's snapshot every few years. And also the guys that are doing that is Russel T Davies, and he doesn't really push like the technology, doesn't push really like the politics. There's no weird stuff happening. It's just basically the continuation of what we have right now, except at the end, which is a bit weird. Like the whole applauding yourself like in 15 years is a bit pushing it.
Okay, so I have to say stuff now. So it's a project by Russell T Davies, as you said, who is the guy who brought Doctor Who back in 2005, I think. And he's known for writing really good characters, right? That's the whole point of seeing them through the years. So they are really like very human. And the whole thing at the end that you felt weird about is because this show has been a pet project of him in the back of his head. So he said in some interviews, like, I had the ending ready for 25 years.
What do you mean for 25 years?
Well, he's been thinking about this show for 25 years.
Okay.
So it makes me wonder, because like the current landscape, political and social wise, has changed quite a lot. So he probably like revised his idea, but he knew where he wanted to end up.
Okay, and you wanted to end up on that?
Yeah, probably as a narration device.
I mean, like, it's super interesting. Like, I like the show is super interesting because it touched like multiple things, and the thing about you applauding yourself is also a comment about like, yeah, the gender talk that we have right now. Like when the girl, so one of the first, like in the first episode, there's a girl that come out to their parents, and the parents just think that like she's trans now, and like it's quite a liberal family, so they don't care. They're like, okay, we're accepting you however you want, like blah blah. Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to like get surgery? Like, there's a talk about gender that is super open, and then it comes out like, and then she says that like, no, she's coming out as a transhuman, and then obviously the parents don't understand because it's in like 2020, basically 2021, and she doesn't feel good in any kind of like human body. And I find it like this moment I feel is super interesting because you can see that basically the talk about like the liberal talk about like being super open toward gender, like toward like,
yeah. There's like so open about gender, and they flip their shit the second they understand. That was a really nice moment.
And I think like what's fun is like it's shown as a way that like 10 years after that it's not accepted yet because it's quite new, but you can see that like if you continue like the show for like 50 more years, like this kind of person would accept it as gender, like as they would accept like a transgender person. I feel like it just like it shows that it's just habituation.
That is true. So I don't think it served that purpose. Like I don't think he put that scene in as an echo of that to as an echo of the conversation to show acceptance. But it is really nice that it does that. I think, well, I've always seen it like an epilogue of like nice little narrative device to finish. But
No.
as it is well written, it also does that because obviously you see the reactions of everyone.
And also, we're not gonna talk a lot about the plot and blah blah blah. But what I really like about the show as well is the depiction of the gay guy. It's the best representations that I've ever seen in any kind of show.
I mean, obviously it's Russel T. Davies.
Yeah, but even in like Torchwood, the gay like bi character are a bit like stereotypical. Like there's some stuff that you can argue is not like the best representation. Here you can really see basically a normal gay guy, and I feel like and even because Russell T Davies did Queer as Folk, no, the UK version.
Yeah, but it was one of the first things he did. So I think you can really see through his career how much he evolves and takes control, like progresses and takes control of the narrative. Like it's been a while since Torchwood. Now he's really free to do what he wants. I think that felt like a very Davies project. No.
Yeah, clearly. But like I don't know, I love this depiction of. I don't know, it's the first time like I really see a normal representation basically without stereotypical, like just like a normal guy basically.
I mean, that's what I love about Russell T Davies writing, both in Doctor Who and like the rest of his work, is like the characters he writes are very real, right? Like you see when he leaves Doctor Who, it changes to stereotypes.
So do we want like what like I was thinking about doing that as like the main topic. Obviously we won't go really into it, but I kind of want to talk a bit about this show is really about a dystopian future, like it's not a happy future at all. And I find it interesting that, and we talk a bit offline about it, but I think it's interesting to see that like dystopian / utopian future in the last 5 to 10 years, 5 years, let's say, are very much about taking what's happening right now and pushing it to the direction that we're going in and see how it fucks up everything. And it's not about taking an ideology and like see what's happening. And in old utopian / dystopian work, what you see is you always start with what is described as a perfect system, and then see how it doesn't work. So you can like even Utopia from Moore, like you can see like how it doesn't work. 1984, obviously you can see how it doesn't work. Brave New World, you can barely see how it doesn't work because you can argue that like it's a working world.
How it doesn't work for some definition of doesn't work.
But actually everyone is happy and free. Like if you're not happy you can leave, and if you're happy you can stay. But whatever.
It's fine.
Like
for some definition.
But what I want to say is like, is our generation completely depressed about the future? Like don't we have any hope? Because I feel like before there was a hope that like about the future when old people, I don't know, like 50 years ago when they were talking about the future, people expected a good future, and it seems like our generation like is the complete opposite. Like we're just waiting for the world to end basically.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, like touching both cultural production, pessimism, science fiction, etc.
Yeah.
What do you wanna focus on or /start on? I can answer like a lot of these. I can touch a lot of points. Well, I think so. There's always been people telling that it's the end of the world. That's for sure. Is there more now than before? It's hard to tell because now people, when they say something, they have more platforms. And that's combined with the fact that fear sells more than hope for some reason. That's kind of like the way it works apparently, which is sad, but that's just that.
That's actually like that's the weirdest thing.
Yeah,
Like why? Like don't we want to just be happy?
because you want to survive first, and then you want to be happy. Some kind of pyramid of needs.
But we survive. Like I mean, I was too drunk yesterday to like find my phone. I was in my bed. I wanted to throw up, and I said, "Okay, Google, set up an alarm for tomorrow 9 a.m." and it worked. I think we're quite high in the survival. Like I can get trashed. I cannot find my like supercomputer on my in my pocket, and I can still access like a random thing to wake me up to work.
Yeah. So that's your most elemental self, and that's what the fear panders to, whereas happiness panders to hope, panders to a more high level thing that is less. Yeah. But the thing that really bothers me about what you're describing, more than like whether or not are we more pessimist, with what the fact that the view of the future has changed because we are in it now. The thing that really bothers me is that our market doesn't encourage creativity. It doesn't encourage taking risks and differing. It encourages the same Marvel movie over and over again. So I think there is also this fact of this phenomenon of inertia combined with all these other factors that make it hard to say anything about that. Like it's
So you think basically like they found a good niche market of like dystopian world like sell, and so let's just push it. And it's not saying anything except that it sells, and it's not really, if they did a utopian world that like worked, we would just have like 10 utopian movie and a dystopian movie. Is that what you're like saying?
well, yeah, but utopian world can't work because that doesn't sell, right? So it's a tentacular product problem.
Yeah, but I mean like utopia. No, but there's a difference between trying to show utopian world with mistake and with like with stuff that can go very wrong, and just taking a future that is not working at all directly, and like that has never tried to be fair or like good or making people happy, which is like, even if you see the big production like Hunger Games, it's a very unfair world from the start.
Yeah, that's something else. That's because movies and TV media production never tries to be subtle because it's too smart and not pandering enough. You don't make money by being subtle.
So you think that like Brave New World couldn't work today, like as a big production?
Well, not as a mass market well, it's always been like an elite product, and it would be an elite product still now. It's just that now you have like mass media in your face.
Makes sense.
Mankind sucks, man. Like if you want something to pander to everyone, it will need to pander to the lowest common denominator by definition.
Yeah, maybe you're right.
And that brings me back to the one point I really wanted to make in about years and years, is the scene. So it's a good show, but the scene I really loved was in the last episode when the grandma at dinner rounds up everyone and tells, yeah, the world has gone to shit, something are still good, most things are really bad, and it's your fault to all of us. Like she doesn't just say to all of you kids, she's like to all of us. It's our collective responsibility, and that's something I've been like really into this kind of idea lately. Because I've been thinking about how democracy and capitalism are two ways to fragment the power and give it to everyone, essentially. In idea, conceptually. So the one point I'm worried about is that if you do that, you end up catering to the lowest common denominator, and like the lowest common denominator is probably the minimization of cognitive load or something pretty bad. So the grandma is like, oh yeah, you didn't bat an eye, you just accepted and moved on.
I think there's another way to see it, meaning it dilutes responsibility, and like it's not about the common denominator, it's more about it's not my fault, and if it's not my fault, I don't act.
Yeah. everyone kind of gets a free pass because it's like she even says that, like, what could one little me do in the sweeping tides of history? But the sweeping tides of history is full of little me's, so it's a complex problem that realistically, like, the only solution is the solution that like the maximization of, like, the thing that fits the human psyche, right? This is gonna go in the way that the human psyche goes. And so that's why I'm really pissed at Years and Years, because the end of the show, she has this big speech about personal responsibility and it's our collective effort to build a good world. And that was really nice. And then they have this shitty heroic action sequence of like, oh, one good deed saved the whole world. And that's magic.
But not at all what I was talking about.
What?
Not at all, because then you go, yeah, that happens like as like a heroic way. But what's happening is actually like it's told as like, yeah, we did this action, but the system went too far and everyone did an action. Like we're not heroes at all. While we were doing that, everyone was doing that. Like at the same times, like there's another camp that was free, that we have nothing to do with. At the same times, like everything happened at the same times because the system was broken.
Right, no, there was like 3 actions. That's not everyone. That's like 10 people. 100 maybe. They were sharing the whole thing is they all shared the video on Facebook. They felt good about themselves, and then there's back to square one. Like they say it like another monster is lurking in in the shadow of the previous one, and nothing evolves, nothing gets solved, but it's presented as if something gets solved, and that drives me very sad. That makes me very sad.
Yeah, but you don't like that, or?
I don't like that because it's so easy to get like it feels like you're supposed to get carried away and uplifted and like, oh, they solved it.
Yeah, but then it crushed your spirit. Like it crushed you just.
Well, it doesn't.
That.
It tells that so subtly. So I would have loved. No, I would have loved that the finale was really about like personal responsibility and long-term effort to make a better world, rather than this half an hour action sequence. Do you ever feel paralyzed faced with a difficult choice? When there's simply too many options, it's easy to get lost. This is called choice paralysis. Thankfully, we have a solution. Thanks to this axiom developed by our top scientist Ernst Zermelo, you'll always be able to choose an element in any non-empty set.
So today's main topic is what does theme park, I think more particularly Disneyland, tells you about happiness. So tells you about how you can be happy, I guess. And what's interesting, I think like there's like different levels that we can talk about that subject. The first thing is like, why can it tell anything about that subject? And I think the straightforward answer is people, engineer, whatever, like Disney people, create a park literally to make people happy. Like that's their first aim. And obviously to push the brand and like blah blah, but like the job of a theme park is actually to create a happy memory. The whole idea of a theme park is you're gonna pay X money and you'll be happy for a day and you're gonna create memories, like happy memories for that day.
Can I interject something? Is happy memory and happy moment the same thing?
It's really not.
Okay.
And so no, that's a point to discuss. I think that's the first one that I want to discuss.
Which one of them is okay? Sorry. Go ahead.
So yeah, so my first one was like exactly like like for sure theme park create happy memories. Does that actually relate about like a happy moment? Because if you actually describe your day at a theme park, 80% of the time it's like kind of boring.
I was waiting in line. Yeah.
Yeah. So
they'll probably have like the best, the most thinking time on line design ever in the whole of history of mankind. But so yeah, the whole question is, it's probably producing what is the product that they sell, right? Is it a happy moment or happy memory? And it's probably happy memory because you want like remarketing, you want people to come back.
No, they sell happy moments. but they deliver happy memories. Yeah, because it's an ending experience. Like it's just a 1 day thing. So you go to a theme park, you're not happy, then you might be not happy during the day, but at the end of the day, you have 5 good pictures with Mickey Mouse and like I don't know, like with all the characters from all your favorite movies, and you go out and you have these 5 photos to remember, and you remember like the happy moments of the day. You don't remember the queue. The thing with the human mind is you never remember the boring parts, so you only remember the highlights. That's an important fact. Like, is being happy about remembering being happy, or is being happy about like being happy in the moment?
And there is also the thing that the happiness they bring you is not sustainable, right? You're happy in the moment for 1 day, but like they don't produce week-long happiness. I don't think anyone would be happy stuck in Disneyland for 2 weeks. Because I don't feel like theme park happiness is like happiness with a big H, right? It's not.
How is it not though? Like, it's a perfect capitalistic dream. It's like it fulfills all your materialistic needs.
No, it doesn't it doesn't deliver novelty, which is the one big the capitalist driver. Once you've done all the rides 10 times, you've done it all, and there's no evolution. Or very slow evolution.
If the park is big enough to spend 10 years in, then it's fine.
Okay, so it scales, it's a happiness that scales with the size of the park.
I think that's a good transition between our utopian work, like our utopian discussion and this discussion is maybe we can create a utopia where it just like you use, I don't know, all the US as just a one big theme park. And now we have a utopia, and what's interesting is the second point I wanted to make during that conversation is it started with a very like communist view on what capitalistic in a capitalistic world, how you can use communism view as like a way for people to be happy. Because when Disneyland just started, and when Disney World just started, and when like Universal just started, there was no such thing as like fast pass or like super pass or like that sort of stuff. You just pay the entry fee, and then you had access to like the whole park, like every attraction. Everyone was queuing the same for the same thing, and everyone, whatever, if you had enough money to enter the park, everyone had the same experience. Super interesting to see that doesn't exist anymore, because like if you can make money, like let's do money. But before there was fast pass that you can pay, it was actually maybe the most
equalitarian.
Like, yeah, like I mean, this was a queue where you can have a millionaires and like a minimum wage person in the same queue, which never happened in real life. So I think it's a nice bubble. And what's interesting as well is even now, I think it's happiness. Like when you say happy, like in a theme park world, it's really about entertainment. It's really about forgetting the world outside. So like it's a day where you forget your life and you forget all the shitty details of your life. You're here to actually be entertained for one full day. And what's interesting is like you see that everyone strives for that. Like you can be a billionaire, you can be a CEO, you can be like you just can't live by. You can be like, not a Buddhist monk, but you can be like a priest. And when you talk to people about like their day at Disney, usually they prepare money to not think about money during that day.
Yeah. So is it really about money? It's a day without any worry, right? Supposedly.
And I think like that's what they sell actually. Like when people are preparing for that day, they prepare it as I don't want to worry about anything. Rabbits and stuff. But the thing is, they're coming. What's interesting there is not like the actual thing that is happening during the park. Is like people prepare themselves to spend a carefree day. Like they have that in mind. Like being happy at a theme park is being carefree.
Yeah, it takes effort to be. It takes effort to not have worries, right?
Yeah, apparently, like that's what it teaches us. Like I don't know, I never thought about it that way.
So I guess they really need. So the theme park brings something, but they have to bring something themselves. Like they can't go elsewhere. Like my thinking, if they are preparing themselves, like do they really need the theme park? Can't you be carefree somewhere else? How does this compare to a week trip at Ibiza or Mallorca?
A holiday and a day at a day park is not really different in that sense. Like I think people prepare for vacation quite a bit.
And they both tell you happiness in a way.
But the only difference thing is that Disney or any other like big theme park are engineered for you to be carefree. When you go to Ibiza, obviously, like that's also true. Like there are some resorts and some like it's a very
Well, some
touristic
places
place.
are really designed like that. Yeah, okay. But most.
Yeah, but it's less control. Like Disney is the most controlled place on earth.
And probably the most engineering research. Like when you have a park, you do A/B testing. You can actually do research.
It's
per
not
se.
the real world. Like when you go to a holiday, you still go to a real place with like real people, with real politics, and you will never have a strike at Disney. You know what I mean? That is not happening. Like you're safe. Like nothing will happen to you. Like there's security. Like it's
a bubble outside of the real world.
So that's I think the first difference, and that also could be a point that freedom is not super important to be happy. Meaning you're in a place where there's camera everywhere, where everything has been engineered for you, and you're actually happy. So maybe like that also tells us that just like having freedom doesn't really push happiness.
It's so ironic how much this is close to so many of the dystopias that usually the American values break, but the paradigm of American values is paradoxically exactly that. It's funny.
Yeah. But then, I think like to keep it short, maybe we can also talk a bit about how do they create, like what are the points that they do to make you
Yes,
happy?
I was a bit sad that we didn't dig up on that when you said engineering. So you follow YouTube videos about that?
Yeah,
Is that
so there's a
like,
YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description. I need to find it with these amazing guys that only do Disney World video. So basically, he's just talking through every little inch of like Disney World. So, let's talk about the bushes at Disneyland. Let's talk about like the trees. Let's talk about like this one little queue that has changed in the last 3 months. And also, he talks about a bit like a more complete view of the park. And what's interesting, I think, there's like multiple stuff that is happening in the park that I think you don't think about that often. The first thing that I find very, very interesting and that changes between a park and the real world is music. At a theme park, you have music everywhere. And there's a lot of research about music and mood. So the music aspect, I feel is super important because this is music that is completely engineered to push you in a mood. And like it changed everywhere. So meaning when you're in the main street, so you start every Disney park have a main street that you start on. And so you're on Main Street and you have this very cheery, like happy track that is played during the day. So you start with a very, very happy mood. And the Main Street is completely engineered to make it look big and full. And at the end, you always have a castle. And this is like, and it's actually thought as, it's completely like the perception is faked for the castle to be seem bigger. And so everything is just engineered for you to have like this view of a gigantic street, which is really not gigantic, with this gigantic castle that you've seen in movie. Like, because this castle, you know it from all Disney movie, like it's the castle that you see at every start of any like Disney movie. So you're already in that world, like you're entering the world via this main street to start, like, you know what I mean? You start your day with entering a world that exists. That's engineering for you to be in the right mindset right at the start. And in that street also, there's a lot of like happening. There's actually like a lot of work on smells. So each store has different smell that are pushed in the street. So it's like very like sugary smell, very, I don't know, savory smell and stuff like that, just for you to again be in the mindset of like, okay, it smells good, there's sounds, everything is fine. Even if like there's 10,000 people in line in this little street, you don't care. Like it seems big, everything is fine. So I think like that's already just like this transition between the car lot where like you had obviously like an awful time going there and like making you forget about everything from like you're entering the park. You have this transition period of like you're in the park, but you're not really in the park. And that's what Disney...
Yeah, engineered like a portal.
Yeah, exactly. But like that's what Disney do good and that other theme parks don't do good. And then also what's interesting is all the decisions are made for you. So obviously, people that love theme park will have planned their day with like every bit of attraction, but people don't actually do that. Like people just follow wherever the park tells them to go, and so it removes like this like any kind of decision. Like you actually can just follow where the park. Like if you don't think about it, the park will push you somewhere.
How do they push you towards a ride though? I've only been in groups that had rides in mind. Like obviously, like there's a big marketing campaign and the star ride, and like we're like, oh, let's go there. But I can't imagine like a group of people not having anything in mind and still like, how do you choose? What happens? What happens to them?
What happens? It's very subtle push, meaning it will be okay. So Main Street, you go in the Main Street, you're kind of lost, meaning you're in that like gigantic place where you can go into like 4 different spaces, but you're not actually lost because there's like your sight actually are pushed toward big things. So if you look up, what you see is either like a castle or either like Space Mountain, for example. So if you don't think about it like consciously, what you will do is like go toward the castle or go toward like Space Mountain without really thinking about it. You're going toward the big. So then you end up like toward Space Mountain, and then like they actually push you to go to a ride with music and with really like neat message, meaning you know what you're getting into before going into it. Before going to the ride, you know what to expect. If you go towards Space Mountain, you know that like with the sounds, like there's a lot of sounds engineering, so you can hear Space Mountain while you're outside of Space Mountain, which is just like complete engineering. Like you shouldn't be able to like listen to the ride, and it's just so you okay, that's a thrill ride. So like, do I want that? No. And then it's also carefully positioned. So like each ride are carefully positioned with like each other, so you don't have like 2 thrill rides next to each other because that's useless.
I had a question slash reaction slash follow up. Is there something to be said about the fact that all of these cues are basically unconscious? Like no, like it puts you in the right mood, but unconsciously. So is this? Yeah, I guess it's just so that it also like doesn't increase the cognitive load, right? It's
I mean, they're doing everything. They're doing everything so you don't think about anything. Like meaning now they have. I'm not sure it's in France, but in the US, in Disneyland, Disney World, you have like a Mickey watch that they give you that is linked to your bank account, so you don't like have money in mind. And you have your fast pass on it. You have your fast pass on it. You have like every kind of information that you need on the watch, and that's something that they give you. Like that's not something that you buy. So I really think like they're pushing for you not to think about anything real, basically, and like they're removing any cognitive load.
so happiness is so what theme parks teaches us about happiness is that happiness is not thinking.
I think what it teaches is if happiness is about forgetting what human is, then theme park can be a utopian world. I think it's just like it's a perfectly engineered entertainment system. But like what's interesting is also it's like you're still thinking, it's not like a mindful state of mind. It's like completely opposite.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point because it's still very active, right? It's very lively. So
It's very like I think like it makes you think that you're making the decision, but actually you're like I think like that's where like it's really good. It's like I think people that are there like make things that they make conscious decision, but actually all the decisions are made for them.
this is like the most dystopian dystopia ever. So, at the heart of the country that praises itself on destroying them. Nice.
To be honest, I didn't really think that's true, but like that's so true.
So the illusion of making decision is important to your happiness more than
Yes, because then you feel you're free.
yeah.
If you don't feel freedom, I think like people actually strive to feel freedom, but they don't want freedom.
theme parks can teach us a lot.
Because freedom is shitty. Like, it makes you responsible. No one wants responsibility. And when you're free, like, you have
So
responsibility.
it's all the good sides of freedom without the shitty sides. That is so cool.
It's the good side. There's no freedom.
Yeah, there is the thrill of it. It's like freedom light, 0 calorie. All the thrill, no consequence. Wait, this is exactly what that was in the. Yeah, I have something that kept bugging me in the back of my mind. This is from the Matrix, right? At the first Matrix, they are like, oh, everything's perfect. People never had like any worry, and it imploded. So we made new ones where they have shit and they think they're free, and this is stable. This is pretty much like that. The Disneyland is the theme parks are a matrix kinda. I think it's time that we bring the discussion to a close, and I have a good question that will lead to a conclusion. I think, and maybe I can start answering it. Is like we've talked a lot about theme parks and happiness, and is there anything we can derive from that in our daily life to be happier in our daily life, kind of like we did the segment about like self-help? So I'm gonna read you my notes. I have noted that I need to improve the smell in my apartment and stop making decisions, like no decisions.
No, that's not the second point. The second point is prepare enough for you not to make decision. The preparation before the day start for it to make it carefree, you can very much apply that to your life.
You know what that makes me think of? That is exactly in theme, is the episode we talked about our to-do lists. And I'm incredibly grateful when I have to watch a new show or a new anime or a new book that I just go to my to-do list and it's organized by priority and I just pick the thing at the top because I know it's well curated. So maybe that's a lesson here. I don't know. But I've been feeling grateful to my to-do lists.
I'm not grateful about my to-do list because it's useless as hell. But I'm grateful that actually the tech world is pushing to remove decision from me. Like, I love how like Google now just tell me if I need to take like which subway do I need to take. I love like it removes that sort of like shitty decision.
The bad decisions. Yeah. So to contrast, to clarify, you're talking about like the useless decisions because
Yeah.
it sounds a little bit like we said, in this episode we talked about years and years and how things are gonna go bad, etc. And it's shitty. We're going to a dystopia, and then we said, oh, but the dystopia is just like Disneyland, so it's okay. We're gonna be happy. That is the summary of this episode, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Welcome. Yeah. Okay. That was a fine conclusion.
The situation is a bit more nuanced than that, but yes. Feel free to leave us any reaction and comment and question to email, Twitter, or Reddit at notdailypodcast.
We're thankful for your future message.
Bye.